We've got a question here, another question from one of our listeners. And the question is, why is Britain no longer innovative? Now, Britain, and of course Scotland, let's be honest, invented the modern world. Holidays, television, the fountain pen apparently, the screw propeller, I didn't know that, the hovercraft, of course, vertical takeoff and landing aircraft, perhaps the jet engine, disputed. Let's not mention the bouncing bomb. All right. So Britain has undoubtedly been, at least in her past, and there still is innovation going on, of course, here, but in the past, incredibly innovative, world-changingly so. Why has that slowed down so rapidly? I want to suggest a handful of reasons why this is the case and a remedy, a sure remedy for this. So what is it that fosters innovation, that creates an atmosphere where that's possible? Well, simply you could say the application of mind to matter. That's one way of looking at it. So a new, more efficient plough, the horse collar, these were inventions that revolutionized the medieval world. And where did they proceed from? The joining of mind and matter. So someone saw the problem and worked to innovate a solution. Very simple. And as well as that focus on mind and matter, you have to have an enterprising spirit that says, well, it might not work out the first time, but I know if I persevere, things will work out for good. All right. So the problem is that these vital factors have been undone. Okay. So mind and matter have been ripped apart. The modern mind, the educated mind since Descartes, very literally is trapped inside his head. I think, therefore I am. If that's your basis of thoughts, then you've got no further. You've got nowhere. You're still in your mind. Your whole world is contained in your mind. All right. So how can you address a practical problem? Well, everything's in the mind. It's more difficult. The outside world becomes less real, less important. So the more educated you are, school educated, university educated, the less you will see the outside world as the real theatre for mental effort. All right. Another problem, maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't, is elitism. The class system, that's what we see in Britain as a manifestation of this elitism. Now, in Athens, an elitist democratic society, work was the job of slaves and thinking the job of the upper classes, the few hundred or however many it was men who could vote. So mind and matter were, again, ripped apart. An elitist society is a stagnant society because of this fissure. It seeks to set everything in stone. All right. What's more, the elitists, the university-educated people, to the degree that they are educated, particularly in the humanities, think that matter doesn't matter. So why is it that these educated people, these rich people, these elites are seeking to merge with machines? It's because they have a disdain for the flesh. All right. But the flesh, the outside world, that's a crucible of innovation. That's where problems are seen and overcome. All right. Also, you have to innovate, you have to serve other people. You have to see, put yourself in the shoes of other people and ask, well, what's their problem? How can I, and you have to understand their problems deeply and have an empathy with them and really place a value above the value of your own time in other people. And can elites do that? Well, if they're elitist in their thinking, then no, of course, by definition, they do not. They cannot. Also, rich or poor, is this not the century of the self? The second century of the self? And if you live for yourself and think in terms of yourself, well, again, that's going to be a huge break against innovating. There's more than one God in today's society. There's the self, but also the collective. And the more collectivist a society is, the more conformist it is. Is conformity an issue in today's world? I think so. And the more conformity is prized, the more the innovator, who is by definition someone who thinks differently, is squeezed out. Am I wrong? Maybe I am. But the great collective of it is, of course, the state, the great God of Great Britain, whom we look to for prosperity and whom we look for health, whom we look for provision. What does the state do in regards to innovation? Well, question. Try to innovate in healthcare. What do you think will happen? I have a cure for cancer. I've got this protein and it switches off this and that. Oh, that's not, no, just don't. If you value your life, don't. Well, how is innovation supposed to progress in that state? Again, like Athens, there's this desire, like the ancient world, there's a desire, a retrograde desire to put everything in aspic and set everything in stone. That's what regulations do. And the state loves to make regulations. It's how it's going to save us. And it saves us from innovation, from forward progress. Education, likewise. Try innovating in education. No, it's all standardized. And the push more and more is further collectivization and standardization and regulation in these areas. How can you innovate? The innovators are going to be driven out. There are other issues as well, probably many, many others that I haven't thought of. Short video, but one of them is Darwinism. This great shibboleth of foolishness. In seeing chaos and chance as ultimate, as the creative force, and death for that matter is the creative force, the vital link between mind and the outside world is shattered. There is no logical nexus connecting the two. And everything, including man himself, is governed and proceeds from and hardly can value anything more than its father, the void, chaos. The more that infiltrates into society, the more your mind is blown. The more that, as I say, nexus that is required between mind and matter is shot. And a man who is meaningless and purposeless, is he going to innovate? Well, he's going to throw himself out the window or just concentrate on pleasure and the moment. And existentialism is another bar, of course. Now, recently, the problems have further intensified by the revival, inevitably, when you take something ancient like the belief in chaos and you pickle the society in that for 100 and however many years, then you're bound to get other things from the ancient world, like the gross superstition of all this, Gaia worship, in the guise of the Green Revolution and so on. Man is now excess carbon who must throw himself under the juggernaut of Mother Earth. And what is the innovative society, if not a society who is changing his environment, who is making improvement upon improvement upon improvement, not to please this fake entity called nature or this false goddess, Gaia, but pleasing his fellow man, ultimately pleasing God in the process. So this is the antithesis of all progress. This is the death of man and the proliferation, not of that cultured world. Agriculture is one of the cultures, of course, but a wilderness, a howling wilderness. If you rewild land, you end up with wilderness, do you not? So there are so many factors, powerful factors at work in Britain to stifle innovation, and yet innovation still goes on at the margins. And where do the innovators go? Well, I expect that they are forced eventually to go other places. All right. The solution has probably presented itself to you already. And the solution, of course, is a return to creaturehood. That to say, well, we're not a fortuitous result of the fortuitous concourse of atoms, but we are children of the dust, yes, but God breathed into us and gave us a purpose. And that purpose, what is it? It's to have dominion over the earth, not dominion over the, other people, like those lovely Democrats of Athens, with all their many slaves. But, what does that man do? He goes around, literally the word of dominion is to trample down the earth, to take that, the basic ingredients and make something better, to improve it, to replenish and subdue it for their fellow man, to serve their fellow man. And when were the great periods of innovation? Were they during the ancient times? No. Well, I mentioned two innovations from the medieval world that revolutionized the world of their time. The horse collar, that sat there rather than being in the horse's mouth. I think that's the way of it. Or no, around the horse's neck. It sat on their shoulders. That was one. And a particular type of plough that I can't remember the name of was another huge innovation that opened up more land for cultivation. So also we think of the formation of the Royal Society in that after the revival of a biblical view of the world as having been created and having the mind and matter being connected the one with the other. Where have the innovations historically come from? Well, of course, they've come from what's now called the West, what used to be Christendom, and which will be Christendom again, of course. So it's pretty grim, still is innovation, but we need to revive it in ourselves in a small way by honouring our fellow men, honouring God, honouring what we are, creatures. Okay, I hope you found that helpful. And thanks very much.